Welcome gamers to episode 1 of this Let's Play series of Distant Worlds 2, playing as the Gizzardians, which is coming in the new DLC, which will be out pretty much any day by the time I actually get this video out there, I guess. So anyway, this is Hive, our home planet, a sandy desert moon, which has got a good mining rate of silicon actually on this particular planet. We can sort of see in this little summary as we sort of go over the top of the actual planet there itself. In this episode, we're going to be starting the actual game itself and getting things set up, and I'm going to be diving fairly deep into what the Gizureans can do in the early part of the game to sort of get ahead. So we're going to be sort of dissecting who they are and what they do. We'll also be going through designing our first fleet and trying to get them established. There's also one other thing. When you do start on tech level 1, in a starting galaxy, you don't know much about the resources, and there is a bit of a gotcha which we're going to overcome as well, which I'll go through after we establish the fleet. I've got the game on pause. We need to basically pause the game as soon as we possibly can, because we have to make the most of our resources at the very start to build our fleet. So let's go through who the Gizureans are and then build the fleet from there. So I'm just going to go to the Galactopedia, which is over here, or F1, whichever one you prefer. We're just going to close the game concepts. This is really quite cool, actually. A lot of good information in here. If you are new to the game, then have a bit of a read through. Certainly, like if you're coming across things, just take your time with the game. This is a game that you can really just immerse yourself in. And I did mention in the last episode, in episode 0, to treat it as a simulation, and just to treat it, don't go fast with it, just enjoy the ride, and treat it as a space opera. That way you don't know what's going to be coming up. You'll just be playing a story, not playing a game. And I love that aspect of Distant Worlds. So there's no other Space 4X that really does it like this, and it's just unique in what it does do. So let's go across. I mean, you've got things, for example, you can see like if you're missing a certain type of resource, for example, you can just go to the resources, and quite often there's a lot of resources, as you can see in the game. A lot of these are luxuries, a lot of them are construction resources as well, but you have things like, for example, carbonite can be a difficult one to find. When you click on these, it will then just give you a few tips as to where to look for them, like marshy swamp, mangrove forest, continental and carbonaceous worlds. So if you are looking for a particular resource, it will give you guidance. And similarly, like if we look at the if we go to the actual where is it, the star and planet types in through here again, if we go to carbonaceous planets, we can then sort of see what type of resources we're likely to get back in through here as well. These are the common resources. It's not the only resources, but they are the common ones that we get. And there's our carbonite. There's a bit of polymer there potentially as well. Doesn't mean you don't guarantee you're going to get them, but that's sort of what there may be on a carbonaceous world. And so this is really quite cool the way it sort of does work, again, with just getting an understanding of the actual game itself, but I won't spend too much time on that one. What we want to do is we want to go to alien races, and we want to have a look at the Gizureans, because that's who we are playing, a new faction to the game. So Gizureans are an insectoid race with 4 arms. Gizureans can also fly short distances with their small wings. They're aggressive and unfriendly. You can see down through here, very aggressive at plus 40 aggression. And they're also not very cautious. So you can see through here, they're quite reckless at negative 15. Tend to be highly belligerent. There we go. That's what that actually is. They often make inflammable claims of their own tribal superiority. Now, this is actually an aspect of the gameplay that will actually kick in at different times, where we're a hive mind, but a tribal hive mind. So we're not a full-blown hive mind when we're playing this. And I'll talk about the actual government type as well in a minute. But this one is, so that's who we are playing as. So it says, viciously mocking and insulting other tribes. This leads to frequent intertribal battles. These battles then lead to unhappiness on the worlds that they occur on, and we do then lose leaders through these battles. So it's an interesting dynamic. It's just what the Gizureans have as one of their features. Gizureans have an intense dislike of other alien races, especially non-insectoid races. This trait makes it very difficult to peacefully assimilate Gizureans into an empire. You can see they're very resistant to assimilation. They have a very high reproduction rate, the highest in the galaxy at 9%, and thus their empires can grow and expand very quickly. Gizureans typically build their cavernous underground homes in rocky rocky areas of rocky desert or sandy desert planets, but can sometimes also be found on desert savanna or volcanic planets. So you'll sort of see through here that we've got like a summary down through here of what goes on. I might explain these things as we go through, just so you get a bit of a feel. So aggression, a lot of these personality traits would be if we come across them as an AI player, like if an AI is playing them, but also there will be some aspects that will actually impact us as well. For example, the migration tendency, they will tend to spread out around the other planets around them, so that's something that they will actually go off. The Teekans are even more likely to do that, but these are, I think, the second most likely to sort of move off and migrate. The reproduction rate, as I said before, was the highest, so this is actually something we do actually have for our particular playthrough. We've got dependability in through there, so this is a -10. If it's an AI, it means that we can't really rely on them all that much. Not as bad as the Boscara, but they're not reliable. They don't stay in treaties for very long. Cautious means that they're reckless, basically, so they don't think things through. They basically just go ahead and act based on, if there's any slight aggression that comes their way, they're just as likely to declare war. Things like that. So that's sort of how the personality traits work. In terms of the colonization suitability, this is one of the hardest things to explain how the game actually works. If we have a base world, and I'll just go to any old other world. Let's have a look down in here. So this, for example, we've got a mangrove forest planet, and if we click on that one through there, actually we don't know what the quality is, so I can't actually show that. I'll have to go back to my home world and show it and try to explain how it actually does then work here, because it's the only one we've actually seen enough to know what the quality actually is. So in this case, when we go and have a look, we can see that the quality is 47%, but the habitability, the suitability for the Gizzardians is only plus 37%. So the quality basically can range between 0 and 100 for planets. So I don't know if it can go into the negative. It may be able to. You can damage planets over time. So the quality is like a base level for the actual planet itself, no matter which race you're playing. Our home world, no matter what faction we were playing, will always have a base quality of 47. But there is a 50% threshold before it becomes habitable. And so when we hover over the sandy deserts, we'll sort of see there we've got a 50% quality threshold, and that's pretty much every planet. Every planet will have that. I don't think there's any of these that won't have the 50%. So we've got a 50% quality threshold, and then we have a boost to our suitability. So even though it's got a threshold of 47%, sorry, the quality of 47%, this is so confusing. I wish there was a better way in the game to actually explain why and how this actually works, because the net result is we've got a 50% threshold, but we've got a plus 40% suitability. So we end up with essentially a -10 aspect to colonizing sandy desert moons. So we have a -10, which is what we see there when we hover over the quality. We've got a 37, not a 47. So it's 50 minus the 40 50 minus the 40. If it was a rocky desert one, it would be 20 different. So it would not be a 37, it'd be a 27, which would still be habitable. Like what you want to have is you want to have a suitability above 20 to make it so that you can actually thrive on those worlds. So 37 is a very, very good planet for us. This is actually a really, really nice planet to have as our home world. Anyway, it's complicated, but that 50% threshold, essentially you go to the 50, you subtract the suitability, like 30 in this case from the 50, which then is subtracted from the quality, which gives you your basic suitability for that particular planet. Very, very, very confusing. But anyway, that's sort of what it is. So it doesn't mean that we have an immediate plus, like it doesn't mean that it's 47% and then we have a plus 40 making it 87. So that may be how you're thinking about it. I haven't explained it very well, but that's actually what that is. Anyway, I didn't want to get too bogged down in these explanations, so let's just go through. Now, the bonuses. Now, the bonuses are interesting because what we actually have is we have a combination of our race, and typically we're going to have a combination of our leader as well, if we go back into the leader. And so we've got this overlord, and you can see through here our leader is tolerant, which gives him a +5% diplomacy and a +5% trade income. We also have a few other little things, like he's just got a native troop recruitment rate there of +2%. And so what we'll find is that we've got there's not seeing any of those there. Actually, diplomacy there, we've got -15 for being a Gizzurian. We've got a +5 because of our leader, because he's tolerant. So that's just one of his traits, a random trait that he actually has. Now, to see the full impact of everything that's applying to our faction when we're actually playing the game, this one gives us what the actual race is that we actually have, so all research -10. We can go into our empire screen, and there's a new tab now, which has come in the Discovery update, which is these bonuses. This will then give us the actual amount. So you can see that we've got all research of -10, but we have an all research over here of -15. So what's going on? There is a difference there. So if we hover over that, it will then tell us that we're getting -10 from the Gizzurian race and -5 from our cell hegemony government. So our government, which is this one tab in through here, will then go through all the different aspects. There's the all research. So this has got pros and cons as well about all sorts of different things that we then get to do. And so these bonuses then get applied. Our race, our leaders, all the different bits and pieces that do come in will then just give us a summary of who we are. This is quite a useful tab, actually. So that's there under your empire and then bonuses to sort of see what's going on. Anyway, we've got the important thing here is our research is very, very difficult. So just be aware of that one. We're good with attacks. We do have a fairly unique aspect where our actual boarding assault strength goes up by 25%, and our boarding defense strength also goes up by 25%. This makes it very difficult for other factions to assault our ships and actually take over our ships. We actually defend our ships very, very stringently. We also, when we do send Marines across to board with boarding parties onto other ships, we have an advantage over the others. Like usually the defenders have a slight advantage over the attackers if they've got equal numbers, but for us it's actually the opposite, where if we have equal numbers of Marines versus versus the defenders on a ship, our Marines will tend to do very, very well. So that 25% is really important, as you'll see in just a minute. We'll skip past all of these things. We're not very good with ambassadors or scientists, so we don't tend to get them very much, but we do get admirals and generals a lot. So that's sort of what we do end up getting. Now, the special features, these will eventually come to all of the original 7, by the way. So the 7 factions will ultimately have these fairly unique things that actually happen with them. Now, I'm only going to really talk about the things that will really impact us a lot right now, and one of them is the first one, this waste nothing. So let's actually have a bit of a look at this one here. So waste nothing is a 25% increased chance of tech boosts when salvaging or retiring a ship with advanced tech. So the pirates will always be at 1 tech more than what the galaxy is, and so in this case the pirates are going to be tech level 2, we're tech level 1, which means that they're advanced tech. If we can actually salvage, if we can blow their ships up, and then we find that there's actually tech inside the debris that's been blown up, we can then get boosts to our technology. So this is how we get from 202 years down to much, much shorter range, is by salvage. So salvage is the key to play as the Gizzurians. Also, you can see additional tech boosts when completely retiring an advanced ship, which means not just blowing the ship up and then hoping we find technology. If we can take over a pirate ship or an enemy ship and then pull it apart, that's then going to give us additional boost to technology. So we even get it's a really fast way for us to sort of rattle through the technology. And so it's something we're going to be focusing on very, very heavily. Now, I will go through the others of these fairly soon. One thing we do like, when we come up against opportunities, I'll talk about the others, but we have for example, a way to scour planets. We essentially eat other factions. We just, like other factions are our food. When we actually have them on a planet, we will basically just often, we can set them for extermination, which then gives us a big boost to our own growth. So we can do that. That's the scouring. Breeding worlds, so it provides a bonus to Gizzurian population growth rate throughout your empire whenever you use exterminate policy. These sorts of things, this is actually how we have to play, which makes it sort of fun and aggressive. So let's go and do that. We have tribal conflicts, which are sort of a bit of a negative. We do actually have a special technology, which is the swarm command. And what this one does is a special targeting computer for ships that allows increased targeting accuracy based on the total number of ships in a fleet. So the more ships we have in a fleet, so we can go with a lot of small ships that will then increase the targeting aspect of what they can then go and do. So we do ultimately have we get rewarded for swarm tactics. So again, all interesting to sort of see how this one does play out. Right, well, let's close this down. Actually, what else have we got? We've got different sorts of starting research. We do have our own type of starfighters, which I won't be focusing on. Usually when you do actually have specific types of hangars or fighter bases and things like this, it's worth pursuing it. But for us at the start, I've got a very particular way to play as the Gizzurians because I really want to make use of this. Waste nothing. That's going to be what we're going to be focusing on in our playthrough. Pretty much everything is going to come down to that. And so there's a whole lot of other different things we have to consider when we actually do play that way. All right, so let's just get out of there. Let's get out of there and let's get out of there. So with our particular start that we actually have through here, there we go. We've actually got a independent world down this way as well. So we actually have an independent world straight away, which is the Ketarovs, which are like a dog faction, which is not a playable faction yet in the game. It will come at some point in DLC. But these are like a group that probably won't really like us all that much, but we may be able to trade with them initially. So we'll probably be friendly with them enough until we can take them over. We have to be careful because we have to be careful of the pirates actually making this a difficult... like the pirates are going to be our first priority, so we're going to have to sort of take out the pirates first before we take these out. By that stage, they will have built up a force on the world, but we'll then just build a bigger force and then come and take it from them and then eat them up. So we've got a lot in here which we can explain and show how the game actually does then perform, which will be good. Actually, I'm not liking the bloom effects. I might just quickly go back in and just go to settings and just change them down a little bit. So you've got a whole lot of different things you can actually do through here. Where is the bloom? Lens flare, there we go. I'll just move that down to a smaller number, maybe around about say 40% rather than the full 100%. I find it's just a little bit too strong. So I'll apply that and then just go back. There's a lot of things you can do in the game. It's still there, but just it's still pretty dominant, isn't it, really? Look, I'll leave it where it is. We'll put up with it. We'll put up with it. My OCD will. I'll get used to it. Right. Let's talk about how we're going to approach the pirates and what we're going to do with them. To put a boarding party on an enemy ship, you need to have the shields brought down. So we need to knock the shields out quickly as our main priority. Now, there's a few different weapons. Different weapons will do different types of things against other ships. So let's go into... We've got the game paused, by the way, as soon as it started. So there's a whole lot of things we need to do before our money drains away and before our resources drain away. So we've already got some resource shortages in here. So we'll have to be mindful of these and make the best of these because it's going to take a long time before we get resources back. So steel is going to run out, for example. That's going to be probably the most desperate resource for us initially. Polymer will run out as well. Like this will be something that will run out. And so we need to pause the game just so we can reserve what we need to get established before we go too far. There's a few different ways of us doing this. And yeah, so I think I'll start with building a fleet and then a spaceport. But also then trying to get the best that I can out of the resources in my home system. So let's go across into ship construction. We're going to go to ship designs. By the way, you don't have to do this. If you're a new player and you don't want to be bothering to design a ship, don't bother. I love doing this, but you don't have to. But this will give you some tips as to how to play the Gizzurians, which the game won't do itself. So there's a few little things that we have to then go and tweak in through here. So we go to our ship designs. We have like I always like to keep it on the active buildable designs. really what we're going to be focusing on is just state ships or maybe state bases at different times. So we can either just leave it on all types, which can be a little bit overwhelming, or we can just even click on the role to sort it out so that, for example, all the different escorts that we have will then sort of appear in here. One thing, if you are new to the game as well, I will just point this out. If you go into the tech tree and just scroll down, in fact, you can go across in through here. I'd never do this, but if you go across into construction, this will then go through the different types of constructions you can do, which essentially are your ship types. And if you then hover over, for example, the basic military type is the escort. This is on tech level 0. Tech level 1 is what we have. This then has a branch that then comes down to improved escorts. Sometimes if you're playing with random tech paths, this one won't be available to you, but it can be important. In our case, it is important. We've got 3 different weapons that we can put on the heavy escort. And we do want to make use of that. So this is actually going to be the backbone of our how we're going to bring the shields down. We'll use a heavy escort. We also then have a system patrol ship, which is a frigate. We could have used that as well. Either one, to be honest, would be sort of okay. But I know that the heavy escort will do the job. And one of the other thing as well, like we do actually have a slight advantage over other factions if we do decide to use the small craft. The system patrol ships with the frigates do actually have a hangar, and this is very rare to have a hangar bay on your frigates, and also ultimately on our destroyers we'll end up with 2 hangar bays. So we can make mini carriers if we wanted to go that way, but we don't want to go that way because the way we're playing is we want to be bringing assault parties, marines onto the enemy ships and capturing those ships and then pulling them apart and getting the salvage by pulling the ships apart. So we need a ship to bring down initially the shielding. So that's what we're going to be building right now. We'll just exit research. So always have a bit of a look to see what is available, like whichever faction you're playing. And then also when you do go into your ship designs, by all means, just go to add new. You can also then get a bit of a summary in through here as well, like the heavy escort. If I go and click on a heavy escort, it's still going to give me the same summary down in here. So I can sort of see what's what. I've only got 1 sensor on these particular ships, but we don't have to go and use, I can either build from scratch, I can auto-generate a new design using the ship hull if I wanted to, or I can go back in. Because I've got nothing built so far with the heavy escorts, I can actually go and build one over the top of this current design. I tend to do that. So I'm just going to go across, I'm going to go and edit this particular one. Now the one defect is because it's already used this name, so I'm just going to call this one the heavy escort, just because that's what it is. So that will make it'll be easier for us to then see it in action if we call it essentially what its type and role is. So heavy escort is what it's going to be. I just press enter, and it's now gotten rid of that potential problem. Now we have up to 415 size. This is the size limit, so what we can then go and place on the actual ship itself. The thing I always like to have a quick look at is what are my weapon mounts? And you can see down through here we've got 3 of them. The front one is a size 39 is the capacity. So that means it makes it a medium mount. Now I hope at some point the game actually splits between small, medium and large, but it doesn't. It just sometimes it puts the mediums in small and sometimes it puts the mediums in large. It doesn't have like a real, like when you get the summaries that we were looking at before, it doesn't really place the mediums all that well. Anyway, we've got 3 medium slots in through here at 39. If it was 19, that would be then a small mount, and if it was how big does it go? I think 120 means that you can have up to a size 120 weapons if it was a large mount. But in this case, small mounts are all we need on this one, so or medium mounts are all we need. And so any weapon under 39 size is going to be able to fit on this particular ship. A few other, so this one here, if we have a look at the first one, you can see it's got a 90-degree field of fire. This is really important. So the 90-degree field of fire means it can only really fire at things in front of it with using either a kinetic weapon like a railgun or a beam weapon like, for example, a laser beam or a pulsar. Those sorts of weapons where they have to be aimed will actually have to, like it's only got a small field in front of the actual ship itself. Now the ship means it will mean that the ship should be facing the ships to make use of this. We also then have a couple of others which are 180 degrees, so 2 other mounts, 180 degrees on either side. The negative of this particular design is we've got no protection coming in behind it. So if there is a fighter craft that comes in, they're going to be able to get in behind, or any ship really, and we've got no recourse unless we actually have seeking weapons like torpedoes or missiles. But I think that initially, because this is just a little escort, like it's our smallest ship really, I'm not going to worry too much about its survivability to a degree. I'm going to try to do what I can, but we want heavy hitting power, essentially, with this particular ship to bring the shields down. And then we want to use our swarm tactics to get more advantages over time. So with that in mind, let's just go through what it has. So it's got 2 fission reactors, 2 fuel cells, a warp bubble generator, which is a fairly poor hyperdrive at this stage. Until we get the next one, it won't do all that well. You can see there the size is only 15, even though it's got a capacity of 50. It's only a size 15 weapon. This is not weapon, but component. This is all the components we actually have that we can then go and place. By the way, when you're getting used to the game, this can be overwhelming. I wish it was the default, but I wish that they would change the defaults where you've got 2 different things. You've got a filter through here. So this is showing every component that we know about. And then it's sorting it by bay type and name. But we can actually go and click on this drop down and go to the latest per category / family. This is new in the Discovery update, where the families have now come in. And I'll show you what these are as well. Like if we go to latest per category and family, it means we're going to have less to look at. It doesn't look like it, but there are actually a few of them have now been taken out. And we can also then just go and sort by bay type, category and family size. And so in this case, it's just going to put all of the same type together, particularly in the weaponry. So in this case, we get like the these are the close-in weapons, for example, which will mainly be your rail guns and beam weapons, your interception weapons. These are your point defenses in through this side. IO means this is actually an iron weapons will be back in through there, and then the standoffs will tend to be your longer range seeking type weapons like torpedoes and missiles. So it's just a nice way to get the latest version. And so if we, for example, have a look at the WST, which is the classification, that's the category. So this is a standoff weapon, and you'll see up the top where my mouse is when I hover over this, it's showing that the concussion missile is a standoff weapon, missiles. So its family is missiles, its category is a standoff weapon. And so by putting these 2 filters on, it just means that you're going to get things classified, but you're still going to get the latest of whichever family it is. And this is important because sometimes, like the Sentinel multi-beam defense in particular, is one that is a very, very good weapon to use as a point defense weapon for a long period of time. Even when you're getting other higher level tech interception weapons, this is still very, very viable. So by having it this way, we get the best of, we still keep this one active even when other ones are coming up. Now, one thing we'll notice sort of as we look down at what's actually, so this is what's available to us, this is what's actually on the ship itself. This is the capacity of what we can put in. This is the actual size of what these things actually are. So for example, a medium concussion missile is size 38 and we have a capacity for 39. Now you'll notice that we've got 2 point defense cannons back and through here. These are only size 13s up through there, even though they're on medium slots. These are point defense. So this one has gone with heavy point defense, using kinetic weapons, and then a railgun in the on one side as well. So I'm going to ditch all of those because I want to come back and rethink those. Also, by default, the ships will always pretty much come in with at least a short-range sensor array, which gives it a little bit of everything, really. But we've only got 1 sensor slot in through here. I'm going to get rid of this as well. It does give you a little bit of countermeasures, a little bit of targeting, but if we get rid of that entirely, and we'll just start putting in what we want. Our unique tech is this swarm targeting computer. This is a targeting computer in through here, which will give me targeting of plus 15% and then extra targeting per fleet ship of 1%. So we need to have that in, and so every single ship we bring into the fleet will then add to the accuracy of every other ship in the fleet. So we're going to go this way. We're going to be playing fairly aggressively, playing as this particular group. The Boscara also have an approach for trying to sort of get like more aggressive looking ships, and so ours are all face forward, a little bit like the Boscara. So with the weaponry, now what we want to be doing is bringing the shields down. One thing I used to like doing on the ships was to use the Epsilon torpedoes because they have a chance. If I just go and click on these, I'll just get a few of these up so we can compare it. You can see there that the shield bypass is negative 40%, which means it struggles against shields. But shields themselves, if we go to the deflection shield generator, have got a shield penetration chance of 20%, which means that 1 in 5 shots, even though if the shots that actually hit the shields won't do that much damage, 40% of the damage will be dissipated. But there is a 1 in 5 chance that it's going to bypass the shields. And I've tended to rely on this with a lot of other ships, but in this case, we actually want to bring the shields down, not just bypass them. So quite often the torpedoes would actually bypass the shields 1 in 5. Then there's a 40% of the damage will then bypass the armor and hit the hull, and that will then start to bring down componentry. So you can get some lucky shots. This is why I tend to like torpedoes in the early game. This is no longer really a factor if you come up against Quamino pirates, because they're going to have what's called I think it's a bubble shield, and the bubble shield is a 1 in 20 chance of bypassing. So torpedoes are still great for once the shields are down, but they're not great really against Quaminos. So, and we did place Quaminos when we set the game up next to us, so there's a good chance it'll be Quamino pirates as well. So we've got that. The next weapon we'll have a look at is the railgun, so the medium railgun up through here. This is size 30, this is size 26. When we compare these two together, you can see that the railgun has got a much shorter range, about 50% of the way down through the list. It's more, it's a little bit more accurate. Sorry, it's not. No, it's less accurate at negative 10 in through there with the targeting. The what else is there in there? We've got the damage is a massive one. You can see there the base damage at close range for the torpedo is 35. The railgun is only 11 per pellet. This is per actual either torpedo or per pellet, per missile, whatever it might be. So it's not very high damage at 11, but it fires at a much higher rate. And so the torpedoes, for example, about 3/4 of the way down, it says the firing rate is 12 every 12 seconds. Will fire a torpedo, whereas the railgun will fire every 2.2 seconds. So it's sort of like a bit of a quick loading sort of kinetic gun, basically, which will then sort of be firing through. So it relies on a lot of shots actually hitting, but there is actually an aspect of the standard armor, which is actually the reactive rating. This subtracts, when something hits the armor, it subtracts that number off the actual damage that's done. So when we go back to the railgun and we see the 11, it's essentially a 9 damage that comes through, whereas for the torpedo, it's a 33. So the torpedo, each torpedo does a lot more damage. I like to try to have weapons that do good, strong damage rather than lots of little damage, because the little damage will be dissipated across the armor. This one though, the thing with the railguns is they actually have a shield bypass of plus 40%, so they actually have a chance to sort of break their way through the shielding, but then they have a negative when they hit the armor. So I still want to be hitting, if I can, the actual the shielding itself and actually doing damage to the shield. So the railgun is okay in this instance, but not great. Then we can get the next one we'll have a look at is the Thuon beam. So the Thuon beam up through here, size 28, medium Thuon beam, reasonable damage at 24. So there's a bit more of a sort of a hybrid sort of effect in through here. Reasonable range at 1100 rather than the 800 and whatever it was for the railgun. The rate of fire is every 7.5 seconds, so it's sort of up there in terms of what it will then do. It doesn't have any shield bypass or armor bypass, so it's just going to do whatever damage it's going to then do to the actual ship itself. So this is sort of a viable weapon for us as well. And I quite like the idea of this one because it's just going to be doing solid damage with a beam attack. And so let's just start off by placing those into the... So I'll grab the Thuon beam, I'll place one of them into the front mount, and we'll also then just go and place one maybe on the, this is the starboard side over here. So let's just go and place one of those on that side there. And let's now go across. We've still got one more that we can place. Let's just go and grab a Sentinel multi-beam defense and place it on this one here. That will be our point defense. So we're essentially using beam weaponry. Now we're just one. Okay, this is really cool actually. I didn't realize that we'd be this close to it, but we've actually got our size is almost spot on using this particular design. So let's just go and do this one. In fact, we could call it a beam heavy escort, because we are essentially just using Thuon beams. And if the Thuon beam itself, if we just hover over this one, is the family is beams. So a beam heavy escort will be fine. Let's have a quick look and see what we're doing with our energy. That's all good as well. The speed, we've got 3 engines on this thing, which is good. We're up to 66, which is sort of low average, I guess, in terms of what other ships may be able to do. So we're not going to be the fastest ships. We do actually have a shield and armor. This is important. That's actually okay. So that one actually sort of works. So its whole role is to basically rip down shields. That's all it's got to do. So that's the first step in terms of getting our boarding parties on board. So we'll save and exit out of this one. And we just need to make sure that we then, I hope that they, at some point as well, that the devs actually change it. So when you do actually make a change into here, it either comes up with a little pop-up and says, hey, you've overridden a design. Do you want to set it to manual? And in which case you would normally go yes, or just do it and set it to manual for you. If you don't change that back to manual, the game will, if it's left on automatic, the AI, as soon as it gets any technology, will then redesign that ship for you, and it won't be what you want. So just be aware of that one. Other things that we need to look at is the so we've got the beam heavy escort back in through there, which is now set to manual. Now the next thing is how we're going to actually then put a boarding party on board the enemy ship. Now I don't just want to put one on, I want to put a lot on. So rather than having a lot of ships, which are going to cost me a lot of resources to build, I want to have multiple boarding parties on one ship. And unfortunately, the frigate just doesn't quite cut it. So I can't really squeeze much on board. I don't have a lot of space on here anyway to put assault pods on. So, and I need to probably aim for like 3 or 4 in the ship, and I just can't squeeze them onto the frigate. So, big tip if you're playing as a Gizureans, forget about the frigates for that sort of role. What you're going to do is, you've got a troop transport which already comes with a couple of assault pods. Redesign this. So we're going to go and make this one manual. This is a small troop transport. So we're going to go in and edit this particular design. This is awesome doing it this way. Now, not going to really use it much for invasions, although we can if we wanted to, but we can get rid of one of the troop compartments, which are fairly expensive in terms of size. They're actually 50. So putting getting rid of a troop compartment will be fine. So we just get rid of that one. Now, actually, I'll just go and change this one to an assault transport, because that's really what we're going to be using these for. So assault transport, and it's got 2 recommendations. Now, if I get rid of the second troop compartment, which I would happily do, if I could, it will then give me a defect. You must have troop capacity on a troop transport, so we have to have at least one of them on there. So I'll just go back in and add one of those back in there. So I'll just go and throw that one back down the bottom there. So we just have to have one. We've got 2 assault pods already. Now remember, the Gizzardians have a plus 25% with assaults anyway, so we've got 2 pods, but really to be able to get the bigger ships, I'm going to need 3 or 4. So I'm going to aim for 4. I'm just going to ditch these fission reactors now so that the assault pods are all together. It's just so we can see it easily. I'll just go and place them below. Fission reactors, so we'll just go and throw both of them in there. We can sort of chop and change and see how things actually do work. But if we then go to the assault pods, so these are only size 10, throw them into those 2 slots. We now have 4 assault pods on the ship. Our ship also comes in with only 2 engines and with only 2 empty slots in here. It doesn't actually have any weaponry on board, so we're going to change all of this as well. It also has 3 armor and 1 shield generator and a short-range sensor array. So let's get rid of that one as well. Come back down, and we will go and change our sensor there to swarm targeting. So we've got everything we needed there. Our size, we're still at a little bit there, but now our crew capacity has gone up. So I need to ditch something. I could either get rid of a assault pod and only have 3, but I really do want to have maximum impact with these. So I'm going to get rid of one of the fuel cells, because we've only got 2 fuel cells on the other ship anyway. This will then reduce our size, our range to about 200, which I think was about what the other one was as well anyway. So we're just going to go and ditch one of the fuel cells, and we're going to have to go and get another crew compartment. Crew systems, throw that one into there. So again, that's another size 10, that just replaces that one. So we've still got a little bit of space left over. We've got swarm targeting back in there, we've got all those in there. It would be good to get another engine, because this is fairly slow. It's only 50, so let's throw another engine in as well. Proton engine, we'll just put in the maximum of what we want. This one then takes it up to about the same speed as the other ships. We should now be getting very close to our limits. Yeah, we've only got, what's that, 23 left over, so we don't have much that we can squeeze onto this one. Now, what we want to do is, when the shields are down, we want to be disabling the ship to give us a bit, to stop them from being able to escape. And so one of the weapons that can be really quite useful on these is actually just using iron weapons. So I'm just going to throw iron cannons back into both of these slots. Now that's taken us over by 1. Damn it. So we need to get rid of something else to sort of make space for it. And I think that what we'll do is maybe get rid of one of the armor, which will then give me another 10 to play with, or another 9. And so I can then just go and place a thrust vector in, which is the smallest of the. This is only size 6, just into the engine mounts. And so that then gets me up to 497. This is all okay with what we actually have in through this other side. Speed of 61. We have a fairly good turn rate with this particular design. It's fairly strong with what it's got with the 1 shield and then the two armors, so that's actually all right in through there as well. So everything is looking fairly good with this particular design. These are now all completely full, but the big thing is we get the 4 assault pods, which allows us to then take over enemy ships. So that is massive. Actually, one thing I forgot to do in the previous one was to come back through and set up my tactics and settings. This is really, really important whenever you design a ship. So what I want to do in through here is I want to have the attack stance against weaker targets. I think I'll keep it. I think I'll keep it on neutral. Actually, I could go. Actually, what does the iron cannons actually give us? They have a. The range is 900. Damage is 10. And then the damage at maximum range is 8. So it's hardly any different. So neutral is fine. I'll go neutral and then neutral in here as well, just so that they will come in reasonably close to enemy ships, just to get ready to take them down. As far as when they're going to retreat, I want them to retreat when the shields are below 20 or armor below 50, one of the two. That will be fine, so we'll just go that way. So this design will be fine. We'll just go and save and exit that one, and we'll just go back. Make that one's now manual. We'll go back to our heavy escort and edit that one again and just change these. So aggressive against weaker targets. We need it again to just close in really tight. So I'm going to go aggressive again here. And again, I need to not have any of my ships get taken over or get destroyed. So we need to get them running away fairly early. So when the shields are below 20% or armor below 50%, run away at that point. So then going to be bouncing in and out of fights a lot, and we're going to have to defend. We're going to have to let the pirates have their way for a little while before we sort of get really established. Anyway, that's save and exit that one through there. That then gets that one done. So we now actually have a couple of ships which we can start to use in terms of designs to actually then be able to meet, hopefully, the pirate threat. So what we're going to do now is going to go into our fleets. I can just go in and build with the planet selected. I can go across and start to build these ships. Some of these I don't actually have different bonuses or things for. I can't afford to, for example, build a colony ship, but I can build the. That's a normal escort. Just on the next page. There's our beam escort. To get that one for 4,600 credits, and there's our small troop transport for 5,000 credits. So I can build these up that way, or the easiest way ultimately, if you are wanting to manage your own fleets, is to click on the military tab, And I'll just get rid of that. Military tab, and then click on the templating. So you've got templates for fleets and you've got templates for armies. So the fleet template, actually there's no tooltip there. That's interesting. I hadn't noticed that one's not showing there, but this is the fleet templates. Now, the defence fleet, I tend to like to start off with these and then eventually use up an attack fleet, but let's start with the defence fleet because this is what this is going to be. So we'll just go and edit this. Allows you to do a lot of different things with the actual ships themselves. So I'm going to get rid of the cruisers. I don't have them. Don't have destroyers. We're not using frigates. We are using escorts, and we're also going to be then using another one, which is just going to be the troop transports. So I'm going to have one of the small troop transport. I can also just go and select the assault, but I do like to just have the latest design for the hull small troop transport will be what we then have in these fleets. And this will be the latest design for the hull heavy escort, or again, I could choose the beam heavy escort, but we'll just go that way. And we'll then just go and say, maybe get 4 of those and 1 of the troop transports. That should be enough for us to take down a single pirate ship of most sizes, maybe not the destroyers or the cruisers, but certainly the escorts and the frigates that we then come across. So we need to try to sort of capture these using this particular design, this fleet design. Other things that I don't want it wandering away from my system to protect other elements. So I'm just going to go and change the fleet engagement range. You can hover over this and sort of read it all down if you're wanting to, but I probably want to have this one. We're going to end up, we're on a moon where we actually are. So there's other things around us. So I'm going to go with same location, which means essentially around the planetary bodies that are close to us. The same system means anywhere in the same system, but I don't think I'm going to go that way. I think I'm just going to keep it pretty much around home base. So we'll just keep it at the same location. That will be our defaults for when we build a new fleet. Now, if we build a fleet and need to change the parameters of these tactical settings, we can do that in the fleet screen. I'll show you that when we get started. So that's all we need to do there with our defense fleet. We'll just go and close that one down. And we can then, with the defense fleet selected, we can now build a new defense fleet and we'll build this at hive, which is our home. So we can build them on the planets, or we can build them at a spaceport. Now, we don't have a spaceport yet. We've got 22,000. Click on that one through there. We can afford 4, actually. That's good. So we've got 4. We've still got 3,775 left over. And all 4 of the heavy escorts have now come into construction. That, with that one, has now sort of chewed up a little bit more of our steel. So our steel has gone backwards. Our polymer has gone backwards a little bit. And so we now have to be careful with what else does go on. So we're going to start to unlock the game and let the game run forward. Now, one thing I want to be doing is actually avoiding at the very, very start any of the asteroids. So we're going to be, and I'll explain why we're doing that now. We'll actually make this is going to be a fairly long video, but I'll go through why we do that, because what we have to do is we have to get on top of our resources as fast as we possibly can, and we need to get on top of the steel as fast as we possibly can. Unfortunately, the asteroids are very easy for our explorers to go forward and actually try to locate where steel might be, and I want to stop them from doing that, because as soon as we find any sort of steel on any asteroid, our mining ships will just flock to that one asteroid, and it can take them years to fill up their cargo bays. Also, you may want to check, if you're not playing, I know that the Gizureans don't do this, but the Quimino do. You don't want to have a massive capacity, so you may want to go back in and redesign as a bit of a tip. Have a quick look at your mineral miners, your mining ships in through here. We've got small and medium mining ships, so it'll tend to always try to pick the bigger one. But if we just go back into this one and have a look and edit it, what we don't want to see is multiple cargo bays. We just want to have one cargo bay in these actual ships. And so if you've got 2, it means it's going to take even longer to mine those sorts of resources. So you want them sort of leaving and coming back quickly, which would be the ideal. Anyway, so almost wish there was like a halfway cargo bay, so that you end up so they would come back even faster. But it is what it is. That's what we've got there. So have a look at that as well. You can see that we've got 3 of these at the very start of this one. We've got manual, that's all okay. So everything else is actually set up fairly well. We just couldn't afford to build the last ship that we required. Another thing I like to do is I just press F to bring up the fleet that we've just created. I'm just going to go and do Control 1 to then set this one as my hotkey for the first defense fleet. That way I can bring it up. And when I can afford it, I can then just go and top up the fleet with ships. Now, we need to find other resources for our mining ships to actually go and get before we find the steel. So I'm just going to go and locate everywhere where there is actually asteroids. So if we just go across to the different planets, is there any actual asteroid belts? We're going to have to look at each one of these, I think. Yeah, there's no actual asteroids, but there will be. So we'll just go and yeah, there's nothing in that system. We'll start in the middle and just work our way through. Nothing there. Nothing there. Nothing there. Sometimes you don't see them until you're close. There we go. Got an asteroid. Asteroids are around this rocky metallic planet. So I want to avoid this planet at the very, very start. And then we've got this one as well, which is the Independent. And then down in here, nothing there. So only one asteroid belt, which means I only have to really manage that. So really when we're going to be starting, what I want to do is I want to stop the explorers that are going to be going to asteroids to sort of then go and look, and just initially, just for the first little part of the game. So this is not something you have to do, but it will actually just help us ultimately a little bit. So I'm going to unpause the game. Actually, before I do, there is one other little aspect of automation that has now come into the Discovery update that you may want to play with. You don't have to, but you see there with our designs, we're going with beam weaponry. Predominantly, we can go back into our policies and we can just go back into construction and tell it what families to prioritize down in through here. This is now new. So rather than going to railguns, I'm going to change my priority to beams. Not that it's critical, but I'll just place those in through there. You can actually change all sorts of different weapon types. This will then sort of, the AI, when it redesigns ships, will then prioritize those type of weapons for the for whatever it's going to do. Like for example, the intercept weapons, I definitely want to have that on beams because I want to be using the Sentinel beam as long as possible. So just go and make those little changes as well. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place today. Just go back there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go and open up our Explorer tab, and we're just going to keep on monitoring what these guys are going to do. Anything that goes to something that's not an actual planet name, we're going to change it and move it off somewhere manually and then have it then come back afterwards. So let's just go back, unpause the game. These will then take a few turns before they then start to sort of get themselves sorted. And we get a little bit of a boost being the cell hegemony. And off you go, guys. Anytime there we go. So just pause it once they actually have their initial list. So we've got the, if it's got like survey a Clatuni 1, that's a planet. If it says explore Illegale, which is a moon, that's a planet. This is all okay. Actually, this is not too bad. These are all planets and moons at this stage. Let's just go back down the bottom here and just see which one this actually is. So we actually have Isithoth is actually a rocky metallic moon. Actually it wasn't that one. Which one was it? It had the asteroid. It's this one here. Clatuni 4. Anything with Clatuni 4 will also be a danger for me. So I don't want to have Clatuni 4 in the list initially. And actually there's not. So this is actually okay. So we'll just monitor and make sure that none of there's Okasoga as well. I'm not seeing that one there. Yep, that's all right. Yep, that's fine. We'll just go with the exploration ships there. And so they'll now wander off. And what we want them to do is to find resources that aren't part... Now, we'll get a message when it gets close to this one that we've now found the Keterovs. So these are all coming into locations where we may find steel on one of these planets. Now, the way that these work is they come in, they do a sensor sweep, and again, I wish the graphics would show this, but they actually do like a bit of a sensor sweep, which will then find the first five levels, the first 5 levels of exploration. 1 just means you got visual, 5 means you got done like a basic sweep, and then after that, it will then start to send away teams up to a total of 25 with what we currently have at this point in time. And so this guy over through here, for example, is still coming in closer. Still hasn't started its sector sweep yet. This one will come in very, very soon. Just make doubly sure that nobody is coming into here, which is what we want. We want to keep them away from the asteroids. It's a bit of a pain in the bum, but believe me, it will save you a lot of time later on if you just manage that. Now, this one has come in. He's now coming in close. Now, he's already done initial exploration somewhere else, and so this one is now becoming into a more dangerous position. And we don't really want to have them come away until they really have started to discover other minerals. And what we want to have ultimately really is to have the mining ships with specific things to go and mine. So one of them is mining our home system. The other 2 aren't doing anything. These are the danger. We don't want them going off to go and grab other resource from just grabbing them essentially from asteroids. That's not what we want. Now, have we done this one here? Yep, that one hasn't been checked out yet. One of them has been checked. That one hasn't. I'm not sure why this one's zipped across, but anyway, we'll just watch it. Luckily, we've only got the 1 asteroid. Often you'll end up with maybe 2, even 3 asteroids belts in your system. They can be self-contained, but they can also be like this, where they're around the planet itself. Here we go. So this one is now come back in. So the Smiling Dawn is, and if we have a look and see what it's going to be doing. So the Smiling Dawn is this one here. When you see something where you've got like 2 letters and then a series of numbers, that means it's going to an asteroid. And so we want to stop this one from doing that. We're just going to move it off to another location. So let's just, initially we want to be finding steel. So we go to rocky metallic moons. So let's just go and tell this one to go and survey Isothoth in through there, that particular moon. This will then change it from automation to manual. I'm just going to flick it back to fully automated, but it will still keep that roll going. So we'll just go that way. Again, this is all so that we end up, all we have to do is just make sure that these guys do have a mission before we start to go through the asteroids. And it's really only tech level 1 starts you have to worry about this with. If you don't have tech level 1, it won't really matter. So it will bypass, but the others will start to find other locations fairly soon. So we can just keep an eye on the others to see if anyone else is coming through. Here we go. We've now discovered Caslon. This may be enough now. So we've actually now found Caslon, we've found Krypton, and we should have found Argon as well. So all of those have been found at the gas giant near our homeworld. And so the others may decide that that is enough for them to go off and start to mine. We'll get a message saying, hey, should we build a spaceport? Always say no. Caslon, you could probably say yes, but when you get the first of the steel messages coming through, if you're not doing what I'm doing here where I'm micromanaging this, if you are getting steel messages after you've got sector sweeps of asteroids, hold off until you find a better location, because the first ones it'll just advise you to build them straight away, and you don't need to. The Caslon is probably one of those ones that you say yes, go ahead and build, but just hold off on the steel, particularly because the asteroids are usually the first thing that they will then go and be able to sort of then go and scout. Let's have a quick look and see. So we've got this one here is exploring as well. This one's going across to explore another asteroid. So it's going to ER748. But if these kick in now, I'll just unpause the game again. Will they kick? I don't have any control over these. Let's just go back to our asteroid. Yeah, see how it's going back down to the asteroid belt? Let's just stop it before it goes there and tell it to go down to here, for example. So with that ship selected, so it is going off to ER748. Hang on, I'll just pause that for a second. Yeah, so it now wants to build a large mining station. This is really good Caslon mining. I think I'm going to say yes in this instance. I would often defer to no, but in this case I think I'll say yes. We'll assign that mission, and I'm going to get this survey ship, the Dusty Courage, to come down and survey Clatoony 8, and then also just go back and put that one to fully automate. And so just to correct it, that way it's going to yeah, this one is still on its way down, I think. Yeah, survey. It's not going to survey in here. So let's have a quick look at our survey ships. Is there anyone that's going to numbers? This one here is. This one has now finished its survey of this particular moon. So it's done a sector sweep and found no resources. So it's now going across to those locations as well. It will ultimately be a really good mining location, but I just don't want to do it initially. What else have we got? You see these have all been now swept. This should be enough for us to... we should have enough now with the mining ships going off. Yeah, look see how these are going off to get the Caslon. We're past the danger point now. So I can now just say, yep, go ahead and do what you want to do. But I just initially just stop them from going to asteroids for the first 5 minutes or whatever, until these are engaged, and then we're fine. After that, we're fine. So at this point, these are all set to auto, so we don't have any that are manual. Just double check that through here. So they're now all okay, and I can just leave them to their own devices. Well, guys, that's pretty much it for this episode. So it's been an hour, but there's been a lot just to just go through with the initial moves of setting up what we're doing. We actually have a bit of more money now as well. So what we want to do is just come back up to our fleet, the first fleet. So we've almost built this one here. I can now just top up with ships. Bang, in she goes, and we've now got the small troop transport as well. So they'll slowly get built up. When we get enough money, I will then also try to get a small spaceport built as fast as I can. I will go through approaches for that as well. We need to get that built for when we start to pull apart the pirate ships. We don't want to be doing that on our planet. We want to be doing that at spaceport. And we want to do it very specifically and very particularly. I'll do that in the next step. When we actually get to that point, I think I'll do that in the next episode. Just talk a little bit about the approach of how we approach the fact of trying to pull apart the ships. If we do it on a planet, it's going to take forever. If we do it in a construction yard, in a spaceport, it's going to be much, much faster, and that's what we want to be doing. The planetary queue as well, you can see there that we've got our military ships are the first ones queued up. It's then put another couple of small freighters in there. By the way, if you are running out of resources and you really need them badly, and you'll see this probably in the next episode, feel free to scuttle before you even start. They'll cancel the construction of these, and that way you get the resources back if they're chewing up resources. But we've got a lot of building to do anyway with our fleet first. So guys, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next episode.